Well, let's dig into the new book. I want to do it in a particular way, which is starting with a quote of yours that a close friend of mine has committed to memory. Now, please fact check me on this. Perhaps it's Abraham Lincoln or Oscar Wilde or one of the other ubiquitous attributions on the internet. But here we go. And I'm fond of this as well. Quote, it seems to me that the purpose of life is to find a mode of being that is so meaningful that the fact that life is suffering is no longer relevant. Now, I have a follow up, just a segue from that. But is that an accurate quote?
Well, I don't know if it's an accurate quote, but it sounds like something I probably said.
Accurate sentiment, a
It's
more or less
accurately attributed.
accurately attributed. All right,
It seems to me that it's true. I mean, it isn't necessarily the case that you can do it.
all right, yeah. So
Right. It's hard to do. I mean, that, of course, it's hard, I suppose, in proportion to the suffering that you're undergoing. And it isn't necessarily the case that you can always manage it, but but sometimes you can manage it, and it's good if you can.
so I want to use your book as I mean, prop isn't the right word, a vehicle for exploring this. One of the books that you often reference is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Sorry, I'm gonna stop just for a sec because I thought about some other things. So this is partly why I have a certain conservative bent, I suppose. See, people need to search for meaning because they get corrupted by suffering if their life isn't meaningful. That's how it looks to me. Because you can't torture an animal forever without it lashing out. And so if your life is nothing, if there's nothing in it that speaks to you, there's still going to be suffering. You can't talk yourself out of that. And so then I see people tearing down traditional structures, let's say, or they're casual about them. Another rule in this new book is do not casually denigrate social institutions or creative achievement. Well, why social institutions? Well, I've counseled lots of people who were lost. And so if you came to see me and I was your therapist, I'm very practical. I'd say to you, okay, well, let's look at your life for a minute. Um, do you have an intimate relationship? What about your family? And that could be, married with kids, or it could be the family of your birth, your siblings and your parents, and so on. How's that functioning? Do you have anyone there? Do you have a job, or maybe a career, even if you're fortunate, but at least a job that keeps body and soul together, and maybe where there's some chance of advancement and hope? Um, do you know how to use your time outside of work productively? Uh, do you take care of your mental and physical health? Do you manage the temptations, drug and alcohol use, and that sort of thing? Do you manage those temptations effectively? Are you educated as are you as educated as you are intelligent? Have you? And those are standard. Those are standard patterns of activity in the world. Do you have kids? Do you have a wife? Or a husband? Do you have a job? I mean, it's mundane in some sense, and you can look beyond all those standard answers for meaning. But if you're overwhelmed by life, anxious and suffering, that's a good place to start. Put that together. Why? Well, the answer to that is because that's what people do. That's what people do. That's the best we've been able to manage. And if you don't have that, because you're a human being like other human beings, you're going to suffer for it. Hmm. And so attacks on that, assaults on that aren't that helpful. Unless you have a better, like I have this friend, he's an atheist, and he's wavering about this. He was born a communist. He was raised in Poland. And he had objected at one point to the Christmas traditions of his family, who were also atheistic. And, he objected on the grounds of logical coherence. Why are we doing this? Well, Don't do it. Well, then what happens? Well, then you have another weekday. You lose Christmas. Well, great. It's like now you're logically coherent. Wonderful. But you've lost Christmas. You don't want to throw these things away. You know, when I see this sometimes with young people when they're talking about getting married, we don't need to get married. We don't need a piece of paper. It's like, really? That's the depth of thought you've put into this? It's like you're not going to mark this permanence with conscious awareness and social celebration and the sanction of your community and a beautiful ceremony. That's just nothing. You're going to let that go? Well, what are you going to replace it with? Nothing. Well, you know, you can say it's I don't want to be married in a church. I don't believe in God. Fair enough, but good luck filling in the hole